Okay, so we're pretty much done now on the aircraft itself. A couple of little bit more things we said before, but I'm pretty happy with how she actually is. Okay, all we've got to do now is a few little extra bits to go on, tidy her up. Big important thing, and I've left them to last because I don't like doing them to be honest, is the old ejector seats. Now, the ejector seats themselves, these are the resin ones that came with the cockpit, and as we can see, we've got the usual problem where they're broke on the little fret and everything else like that. They're full of flash, and okay, you could come in here, we've got a little mini drill here, you see, and get amongst it all and pretty much clean out all the nasties, okay, but there's still the problem is you can't bend them if you want to bend them to shape and everything else like that. Okay, so this is where good old-fashioned copper wire comes in. Now I've got the copper wire here, and then all we're going to do is literally just borrow a paintbrush, okay, come all around and just going to bend in an end just like so. Okay, so we get one hoop there, okay, and we just work out where the other one is going to be. Okay, roughly gives us our 2 loops. Okay, we'll just snip off one a little bit shorter because I'm gauging it, it's a little bit too big. Okay, just like this, and then we can just pull it all in just a little bit more, and the other loop I think is just a fraction too big, so we'll just snip a tiny bit off the end. Okay, and then that gives us our 2 loops. Now we need to stick them into place, so we're just going to grab a little bit of super glue just down on where the joins are. Okay, push them in nice and tight, or a little bit of kicker, get those into place, and then we should end up with our hoops just like that, and that'll fit very nicely onto our ejector seat. And the thing with them is that now, being brass, we can bend these to any shape they are just like the real thing, whereas the resin we can't. Okay, so easiest way for painting ejector seat handles, I know a lot of people say about actually with the striping and everything else like that. If I just grab a pair of pliers just here, I've got a bit on the go which I'll show you in a second. All we're going to do is grab the middle, just like so, and this also gives a little bit more of a 3D effect. All we do is just paint the inside, like so, on both of them, around like that. Then we go around the outside, and we're flooding it as we go, okay, just round the bottom, making sure it's all totally covered. And what it will do is thicken it up as well and give it that effect of being coated, but make sure you go round it in all ways, otherwise it ends up being a little bit off. Okay, so there we go, that's that one done. I've got one here done already, okay, and then all we'll do, quick colour change. Now, by putting the black on afterwards, because that's what's coming next, take a little bit of flat black. The black covers the yellow a lot easier, okay? And then all we do is just go from the back and just going to touch. Okay, we're not trying to rub it round or anything else like that, we're literally just touching it on. Okay, then we'll just come to the underside and we'll look for where the colour is and just pull it over slightly. Actually need a tiny bit more up on this one. Okay, just be very careful how you do it, because obviously we're still slightly wet. Then from the inside, and there is our checkered handles. Okay, so that's those done just like so, okay? Now the next thing is, obviously you could use photo etch for doing your parts. Let me just try to find it, here we go. So we've got here various harness parts that you can use on photo etch, okay? The other way you can do it, of course, is to do it like this. I'll be a bit careful because this here is obviously just like the strapping you'd use, okay? And for that, all we did was use some 1mm jammy dog tape. That's all we do. You bring yourself out a nice long length because you're going to need plenty of it. Okay, and then two options: you can stick it down or just hold it down with something. And then I've got here some khaki, and all we're going to do is grab some. I tell you what, khaki's probably going to be a little bit dark thinking about it. We just switch. I'm going to use buff because it probably would look more like bleached. Okay, and all we do, make sure you've got no nasties stuck on the sticky side. But we're going to paint both sides of it just on the strip. So we just come along. If you can get it to sit in between, it's even better. But if you use something nice and heavy, it will string it out. Now it will crack this as you're bending it around and all the rest of it, so you are going to have to touch it in. But the bonus thing of using this stuff is that it will go around all the shapes and all the tricky bits and things like that. Okay, whereas obviously the photo etch isn't as flexible perhaps as this stuff is. Okay, so there we go. You just have a brush full, just like that, and then what you can do, you can take it away and do what I do and go and stick it somewhere to hang on, usually the end of the bench, just like that. Now here is one I did earlier. Now it hasn't been done that long, so it's still quite plaited, but it's brilliant for doing this type of work. And then what you can do, you can see I have missed a couple of little areas on it. You can go back and obviously touch them in as is required. But looking at your references, if you look at the Phantom, they are all over the place, the various harness. But what you can do, you can come along, cut these to strips, okay, and then you can go around and fold and put them in. But what you want to do is make sure they're dry. Okay, at the moment this is a little bit wet, but I can show you roughly what we can do. All we'll do is tack these in place down on somewhere, pull them round, loop them round, tack the other end so they are a loose fit, and go round and do that all the way round. And then you can just pop around and just touch them in with some more paint as you go round, and away you go. Same with these. Once we've got these done, these are all dry, we can stick them on. We've got a little bit of a red bar that goes in the middle for these ejection pull handles. Okay, once they're in, as I say, you can bend them into position and have them slightly drooping and everything else onto the seat, and away we go. Once that's all done, we'll give it a complete wash over when you join me back. Give it a wash over, everything else like that, and they're ready for installation. Okay, so there we go. That's the seat with the harnesses, and in some ways, as I say, I've got to bend these down in a moment, these actual tapes on there, and it needs a bit of a wash, but it gives you an idea by doing it. Now these metal clips, they're just the ones from the photo etch parts. Obviously it all needs flattening down and everything yet, but that gives you an idea of what we can achieve by using just simple tapes and things like that, which sometimes give a better effect than obviously doing things. Now the reason I'm covered in yellow is because I've just been spraying the chocks for the wheels, and I've done the boarding ladder in yellow as well, which is just here. Now the boarding ladder themselves weren't used by the Phantoms operationally on carriers and that, because obviously you can have ladders kicking around, but they were used in later years and things like that for back when there's at the Naval Air Stations, hence that's why it's had it. Now a couple of other things we've got on the go. I've got to be very careful holding her now because she's getting a bit tricky. This panel here we're going to leave in the middle. It's not hiding anything, but it looks quite good, gives it a bit of depth. We've put the doors on. Now we've got the part we made up. Obviously you have to refresh your memory back now for the ram air. So what I'm going to do is we'll do a small little bit of wiring, but then that will come along and fit, and it does fit, which is amazing when we glue it in place just in there like that, with all its the blades have got to go on there, yeah. So really we've just got to do a few little things. We've still got to pop the nav lights on the wingtips. Once the nav lights are on and everything else like that, we are really almost there, but they're usually the last thing I do because I tend to knock them off and all the rest of it. So the seats are going to be left to dry, totally go off and everything. They have a wash and then a flat coat, and then they can be installed into it. Then we've got a couple of vanes to go around, finish off the other little bits and pieces just over it, perhaps a tiny little bit more weathering and washing and over anything that looks a little bit too clean, and then we're done. Right, so we're almost pretty much there. It's just a couple of little things which, you know, these are the type of things you can, and, you know, you can do them if you want to, but if you don't, it's totally understandable because it is one of those sort of risky areas. Now, normally what you can do is obviously come around and post shade and things like that. Trouble is, when you look at aircraft of this particular era, it's almost got these like wonky lines. It looks like wet marks on there. Incredibly hard to sort of, you know, sort of remake with an airbrush or something during painting. So it's best to do it afterwards. Now this is where, you know, normally you can come along with little bits of turpentine and perhaps do little washes around panels and things like that. The great thing about obviously using my wash, the Flory Models wash, is that you can put this on. If it goes wrong, we can get it back off. Okay, so it's pretty much a risk-free way of doing it. Now what we want is a nice bit of a mix. So what I'm going to do is just take a bit out of the bottle, pop it in the cap, so I've got some working amount here. Okay. Sometimes you find it's a little bit thicker in the bottom than it is at the top. So we've got here is a very fine brush. If we bring you in a bit closer, you can see what we're up to. So what we're going to do is knock off pretty much all of it off the brush, because you're not going to need much. But what we're going to do is literally just touch corners and drag these around, okay, and coming down and things like this, okay. So we got the centre of the panel sort of picked out, and it gives it, and as this dries, I'm hoping it's going to fade back a little bit. But the thing is, if you try and use any other colour, it really doesn't work that well. But you want to keep it very small, very close up to the panel. And on camera, I must admit, it's looking a little bit one-dimensional, and by that I mean a very sort of dark, but what I'm hoping is it will sort of blend in a little bit, okay, and give us the type of effect we're after. So we're just following this riveting detail, okay, a bit more thicker brush, and as it dries it'll fade out just a little bit. So I'm sort of hoping it'll leave us with these watermarks we were talking about. So we just come up here. Also, you might find if you've got a panel line where it's, you know, pretty much been destroyed or something, you can come along with these. But this will give it that effect as if perhaps it's been checked. You know, the panel's been opened and closed, but it gives it this sort of wet, stained look to it all. Okay, if you can pop around other panels. Okay, so it just looks like it's got a little bit of movement on these. Okay, to sort of give it that in-depth dirtiness look, because what will happen is this will dry back, but it will look like it's still wet. Okay, so that is the thing. Now if you don't like it, let it dry, rub it off and start again. Okay, but what we've got here, if we just show you on the other side, I've already done it a little bit down here, and as you can see, it gives it that sort of nice weathered in, looks like it's had the panels off when it's wet type effect. And if you go around absolutely everywhere with it, you'll get that nice thing. But so if you don't like it, the great thing about the Flory Models wash is even over it's over a flat coat and everything else, we can just go along like this, okay, and take it off. So you're not stuck with it, or perhaps it's a little bit too strong. Just use a dry cotton bud and just give it a bit of a rub down. If you find out you've got stubborn bits, just use your finger to sort of blend it, okay, and you can go around and blend them in. But it is personal choice on these ones. Some people like it, I know some people don't because it looks a little bit fake and things like that. But that is the thing with this, we can just go around like this and just take it off or put it on as is required. But if you use your finger, you can sort of blend it through just like that. So there we go, that's really the end of our story. If we just bring it up to speed of what we've done. Okay, so you can probably see most noticeable thing here is the Ram Air one has been done. A couple of photo etch parts, we just gently bend those into position. We've put the coloured on the actual lights as well. So hopefully these will now go in. I've doing these here because the panel lines didn't show through particularly brilliant. It's over a flat coat, it's getting a little bit grubby when we do it, but that's a great thing. Just putting another coat on and away we go. The seats are all installed. The other thing we've done as well, we've gone along and we've got the photo etch, and these are the photo etch parts for the vanes that you can probably see on here just like that. Okay, so that takes care of those. That's all of them on. Obviously we've lost a little bit of sort of wording off of the America and things like that. That happened, to be honest, with a little bit of Tamiya tape that got a little bit over sticky. But as I say, always those things, it all adds up to the effect of it being worn down, old and things like that. We've redone the ladder, very simple job, sprayed yellow, black for the anti-slip runs, and then we've got some, just dry brushed it with a little bit of silver to give it a little bit more sort of luster effect on that. But there we go, that is basically it all done. Very happy the way it's turned out, and now we're all ready for the final reveal. And there we go, we're all done, totally finished off now. As I say, as I spoke about before really, just recapping, we've just gone around and we've just popped a little bit of wash, just found a tiny bit of overwash there, around the areas just to try and give it that sort of blended in look that we've done there. If it looks a little bit too strong, I think on photographs, I'll probably take it off. If it's looking good, I'll do the same to the other side, but pretty much as we sit here, we're all totally finished. It's one of those things, I've thought about adding more wiring and more plumbing to the top here, but I think it's enough without getting too involved in it. I don't want to go around and sort of really overdo it and make it look too artificial and fake. So certainly, as you'll see in the photos in a moment, I tend to leave this area on the spine for the refueling rig pretty much as it is. It is busy back there, but not overly busy. It's been a fantastic build, and obviously we've learned a lot of new things on the way with this one. It seems really like a lifetime ago we started this. Actually, in time-wise, this one's been a project over 3 months of actually doing this one. And obviously in that time, you sort of forget about the things in the early days. The cockpit itself was an absolutely stunning thing to do on its own. And then obviously we've gone in there and we've lit it up, and you'll see in the photos in a moment of actually putting those parts in. So by using resin parts, and we've actually used colour photo etch pre-printed parts as well, you can bring them together. Now I know it's an expensive way of doing it, because when you're talking sort of £25 for the resin part, £15 and and go on, but in some ways if you're going to build something of this scale, and certainly going to put the amount of time that's gone into this one, it's probably well worth the investment to do it, to spend that little bit more, spend a little bit more time on it. And after all, really, when you think of the amount of hours that have gone in this one, over 200, it's a pretty cheap hobby when you look at it like that. I know it seems a lot at the time. You think the kit itself, over £100. Resin bits and pieces we've used on this, probably in parts alone, this one's coming in just under around about the £200 mark by the time we've bought reference materials as well. Speaking of which, we do have to mention that none of this would have been possible without the really awesome book that we use for all our references. Danny Corman's the US Navy Phantom, going through, and as I say, a lot of my inspiration did come from this book, so a big thanks to them and their publishers as well for the book, because it's absolutely been fantastic and really is well worth the investment. It's not a cheap book, but if you're ever going to do a kit like this, you really need it, because you'll see things in there, and if you wanted to, you could literally cut this kit open and go through. I know we started off when my initial thoughts for this kit was, okay, we're going to get on, we're going to do the spine, make it a little different. I see a lot of these kits all around the shows, but you certainly never see them with the spine open. Saw one in 148 and thought that was moot, I would do one of those. Next thing we thought about is bringing up the Ram, the Ram Air spinner and prop, and doing it in things like that. So the turbine, that one went in. Then we thought about the LED, so we put all this electrics in the front end, hence the cable running around the back here coming out, and doing it, and how to feed it out. I'll be a little bit careful, but you can see on the underside we've got it coming out of the actual area where it does in real life. This is the actual port where it comes out, so we've managed to feed it back there and get it done like that. So it's taken in these little variables of like, okay, we're going to take a very good kit to start with, and we're going to improve it. We're going to go around and do the various things. Hopefully you've enjoyed the actual seeing all this extra work that goes into it, because I thoroughly enjoyed doing it. Or also, if you're not really into going to go to town on it, but certainly how to do the weathering by using pigments and washes and things like that to give it this sort of really toned down, sort of dirty effect to the entire kit. And certainly other little things that we've done slightly different on this one, by say using the pigments on the underside and for doing the walkways and things like that. It's been an absolutely fantastic build. I really enjoyed every single minute of this one, and I hope you have too. And if you have, join me again next time.